And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of We Got Next. I'm Rickey Hampton with former Milwaukee Bucks center Paul Mokeski coming to you on a Monday evening. Uh, Big Mo, I know everybody's uh, uh, bracket is jacked up, so we ain't gonna even go there.
I mean, if there's anybody, I bet there's a few people with, some of the teams still in their bracket, like one, like if there's UConn fans or Miami fans or San Diego State fans, might have one in the Final Four still. But I would say 80% of the people out there don't have any of these teams in the Final Four.
Yeah, I wonder what the payout would be for Florida Atlantic making it to the Final Four as a 9 seed.
I bet if you bet before the tournament started, I bet you could get to make the Final Four. You could probably get 200 to 300 to 1 odds.
Dang.
So put $100 down and make $2,000 or whatever.
Yeah. And,
Yeah,
and, and, and Florida Atlantic advanced to the Final Four with a 79-78 victory over Kansas State. We're going to get into that game and the controversial ending. And you could have made some money off San Diego State. And if you told me you had San Diego State and Creighton playing each other in the Elite Eight, you lying. You're absolutely lying. And
yeah.
San Diego State, who's uh, one of the greatest players in the history of their program is Tony Gwynn, the baseball Hall of Famer, is now in the Final Four, where they will play Miami, who knocked off Texas yesterday. Another really good game, 88-81. Miami came back from 13 points down to win. And UConn looked like the best team left in the field with a dominant win over Gonzaga. I did not think, Mo, that they would beat Gonzaga so easily, 82-54.
They
And they
haven't
took control of that game early and did not let up.
they haven't had a close game yet. The closest game they've had in the tournament is 15 points, and they've had two 20-point games, so wins. So they haven't had a close game yet. I mean, they're playing the best, in my opinion. They played here in Las Vegas. I didn't get to see them in person, but I have friends that went to see them, and actually, a good friend of mine who's a reporter went to practice before the regional started, and he said, "I'm telling you, Mo, they look like they're ready, and they have the talent, and they are focused." And man, he was right, because I expected Gonzaga and the UConn game to be a really close game, a really fun
Yeah.
game to watch, and they just took Gonzaga out of the game like quickly. And Timmy is one of the best bigs in the college right now. I don't think it transfers into the NBA. And quite frankly, UConn had two or three big players that could guard him and gave him problems, especially the kid I really like, Klingon, who's a 7'2" freshman who really gave him problems and run the floor, got lob dunks, and yeah, I think, in my opinion, looking at the games, I mean, UConn is playing the best basketball, and that's a team that lost 6 in a row. They lost 6 in a row this season.
Yeah. Hey, going back to Timmy, who had a fabulous college career, Mo. He'll be in the College Basketball Hall of Fame for that career. Uh,
So is Christian Laettner.
yeah, I know. It is what it is. College pro, and that's why I was going to the next. Does he get drafted, or is that a place for him in professional ball overseas?
Well, I don't know if he gets drafted or not, but definitely overseas. He can make a nice living overseas. Start at a mid level, or a nice high level. You can make, if you're in China or somewhere like that, you can make 800 a million euros a year, and you get your housing paid for you and all that. Whether he gets drafted, I don't know. Here's a question for you: would you draft him over Eddie, the 7'3" kid from Purdue? I mean,
Oh,
they're
heck
both
no.
big question marks. I mean,
I I would definitely draft Eddie.
That's who I
He,
would.
I mean,
I don't know. Did you? I made this comment I think last week. I said I talked to one of the an NBA vice president of personnel when I was at the G League game a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about that, and I brought that up, and I said to him, I said, listen, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, he is between a Yao Ming and a Brooks Lopez. He's not as big and slow as Yao Ming, and he's not as maybe not as mobile as Brook Lopez, and doesn't have the range yet. But I watched Brook Lopez play the other night. He had like 32 points and 15 rebounds, and wouldn't you take a chance on that? Whereas opposed to Timmy, who is an undersized big, he's probably 6'10", maybe, and makes his living in college doing the up and unders and the fakes and scoring over guys, but he's scoring over guys that are 6'9", maybe 7 foot. In the NBA, you're talking about 2 or 3 7-footers or 7'3" guys. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've been watching Brook Lopez do a number on my Pistons tonight. He's already got 22 points in the fourth quarter, and Lopez, I guess he's getting more opportunities to shoot the ball later in his career, or is this something just that developed over the course of his career?
A little of both. When 100 years ago when I played, I came in the league as a 7-foot low post player who shoots hook shots and drop steps. And
Yeah.
after about 8 years, or 7 or 8 years, where people found out that I could shoot and with 3-point range, I became a pick and pop guy. And I'm the same size, I'm the same guy. I just got more opportunities, and in my role, expanded when I always knew I could shoot, but I'm not gonna outshoot people and lose my chance to stay in the league. So I think Lopez is along the same. He came in. I think didn't he play with New Jersey at first? I believe so.
I would look at he kind of, he was kind of just a role guy.
No, his brother's a role guy. He was one of the best low post scoring centers in the league for years. He had a hook shot, drop step. He had all that. He was a classic back to the basket low post center for sure.
Yeah, he played. You're right, Mo. He played in New Jersey. He started off in New Jersey.
What did he average? Do you have his average? Do you have his points?
Yeah, in New Jersey. Wow, you're right. He averaged 13 points a game, 18, 20,
yeah.
19.
He was an all-star. He was a low post, hook shooting, drop step, dunking, low post guy, and now look at him. He can still score in the post, and he's a really good passer, but now he's a pick and pop, shoot threes, spread the floor guy. So, if you have that skill, you can't do that. And now, you can't tell me that Eddie is much slower than Lopez. Heck, I'm not much slower than Lopez, and I have a new hip and bad knees, but he's going to have to expand his game like Lopez did, and I think he could.
Paul, did you know his numbers? He played in New Jersey / Brooklyn the first 9 years of his career and averaged 18 points a game.
He was all-star and probably 12 rebounds.
And 18 shot 51% from the field, 18 points, and 7.5 rebounds a game.
And I bet when he first got to the Bucks, when Giannis was a rookie or his second year, and if you look at pictures of Giannis, he looks like he's a little kid. Weighs about 220 pounds, not like he is now. I bet Brook Lopez averaged pretty close to that the first couple of years in Milwaukee. And then with the expansion of Giannis's game and bringing in Holiday, they traded for him. And then the other players that he changed his game to adapt to the team.
I'm looking at. I'm really surprised by that. I did not know he was that
He was,
prolific.
in my opinion, I mean, that was a while ago. I remember I thought he was the best low post scoring center in the league, for sure.
Yeah, and he was the 10th pick of the 2008 draft. So that's been a good draft pick. He's been a all-star. He's been all defensive team.
Yep.
He was on the all rookie team.
He's a great teammate. He's won a championship, I think two.
Got a championship. Got a
The- the-
couple. Yeah.
yeah, a couple. I mean, sometimes I wonder why, these NBA GMs and people making decisions, if they can't see that possibility in Eddie, I don't understand why not. If all indications are he's going to be a late first round, maybe second round pick, I mean, look at the guys they're picking at the end of the first round. Come on, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most of those guys don't make it.
I believe somebody's gonna pick Eddie. He's too big and he's too good. I mean,
Yeah, but if they pick him in the second round, I mean, my opinion, there's no risk there. I mean, I don't know the specific stats, but 80 to 90% of second rounders don't make it in the NBA. Probably more than 2 years.
yeah.
So a lot of guys will pick some 7'2" guy from China or overseas, with the possibility that he's 18 years old. Why wouldn't you pick a 7'3" guy that's played the highest level in college and proven he can play? But we'll see.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's go back to Sunday's games, which were just the the Creighton the Creighton game was really just outstanding. Creighton versus Kansas State. Kansas State led by their point guard Marquise Noel.
No, you're talking about Florida Atlantic against Kansas
I mean,
State.
yeah, I mean Florida Atlantic and
Yeah.
in Kansas State, and Florida Atlantic was the number 9 seed, Mo, and their size was a problem. Their big guy did a lot of damage.
Yes.
I know you're happy to see. I know as a big guy, you're happy to see that.
Well, you look
But
at
Mo, this is a team that Florida Atlantic won 35 games this year. They're 35-3, and winning creates good habits, right?
yeah, but you have to put in what their schedule was. I mean, a lot of those games, they're not playing very good teams, so you're going to win those games. But if you have focus and do the things the right way, and get a habit of winning, that's great. But also, there's teams, like San Diego, well, like Kansas State that got there. They played in the Big 12 in one of the best conferences, and their record wasn't great. They were a 3 seed, but they were battle worn. So they've been, they played Kansas a couple times and Texas, and those teams that were in there, and actually they had control of this game for a while, and then you're right. I think Florida Atlantic, which is unusual for a lower D1 to have the size over them. They have the kid Vladov Golovin, the 7'1" sophomore who kind of roamed the center, and K-State has that little point guard that had 19 assists the game before, but you go against some taller, longer guys, it's tougher to get assists, and it was a good battle, and Florida Atlantic held on and won that game. They earned that game.
And nothing against Florida Atlantic, but sometimes you get some fortune to go your way. They have Farley Dickinson, 16 seed, upset Purdue, who they would have played in the second round. So
Yeah.
instead of playing the number 1 seed, they see Farley Dickinson and knock them off. And then they catch Tennessee, which beat Duke. And, Tennessee's a good team, but, they don't scare anybody in basketball. So you can only beat the teams in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, but they beat Tennessee a 4 seed and they beat Kansas State a 3 seed. So, they did get lucky, I believe, in not facing Purdue, which a lot of teams did. But like you said, you only can beat the teams you're in front of, and you know, when it's a one and done situation like March Madness is, sometimes, a lot of times, luck plays a part of how you move on. It could be a shot like that goes in, and a shot like that doesn't go in, or the teams you're playing and the matchups you have. So, I don't think they're scared of anybody, and we'll see. But San Diego State, who they're going to play next, is one of the best defensive teams I've seen in college in a long time, and that's a veteran team. I mean, San Diego State, you're looking at in their lineup, senior, senior, junior, senior, junior, senior, senior. They're all guys that have been around. And in college, in the NCAA March Madness, a lot of times what people say is good guard play wins. I agree with that to some extent, but less now. Good guard play, veteran players, older players that are 20, 21 years old, and some size.
Talk about the junior, senior, and the age and the intangibles that come with that, Mo.
Well, I mean, a lot of and especially like the blue bloods, everyone's saying there's no Duke, there's no Kansas, there's no North Carolina, there's no Kentucky. And those guys rely a lot on one and dones or 2-year guys and gone. And, and those players, when you look at those guys, they're 18, 19-year-old kids. I mean, you look at San Diego State with the roster they have, those guys are 20, 21, 22 years old. Those are men. That's a big difference, and can mean a lot when the tournament comes around. And I know young players, and that they're pretty cocky, and pressure doesn't get to them as like it used to. But still, they're still young men, and that's part of what makes up why you're seeing right now 4 teams that weren't considered to be Final Four teams. But most of them, if you look at their rosters, they're filled with juniors and seniors, and I think when you look at the rosters, only in the 4 teams, there's only 2 freshmen that play any considerable amount of time, and sophomores, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like you talked about, the high-profile teams will have guys who are very talented and are probably on their way to the NBA, but they hadn't played. They're still young, and freshmen are freshmen for the most part, and they're more than capable of making a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, they're not physically and emotionally developed like guys that are juniors and seniors. That's a big jump. From 18 to 20, 21 years old. That's a big jump, physically and emotionally. So I think you see, with these teams that are in there now, their roster makeups of maturity, and also the elephant in the room is the transfer portal. They all have transfer portal players. That's what college basketball is starting to become, and now you will see mid-level teams making it to the Final Four because of the transfer portal, and they end up getting players that were at Kansas or at Kentucky or at wherever, and now they're playing for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the controversial games yesterday was the San Diego State finish against Creighton, and comes down to the final waning seconds of the game. San Diego State has the ball. I thought the guy was fouled, Mo. Your thoughts on that? I'm looking for that highlight right now.
Well, a lot of it is, and I agree. I heard a lot of this talk today, and I've always thought this way. It's a foul depending on how the game's been reffed till that point. And that was one of the most physical games that I've seen in the tournament. So if you had that same play in the first half, they wouldn't have called a foul. I don't believe, because they weren't. It was being physical, and I know someone threw stats around. There was 22 fouls called in that game, or 22 free throw shot. I can't remember. And all the other games, there were 40 and 50 free throw shots. So that game was being ref. They were letting them play, which I like. But if you're going to let them play, you can't not let them play at the end. And what was it? By the book a foul? Sure. And I think it had. I saw him put his hand on his side there, which I think they will let go. But then he kind of grabbed it a little bit, and I see the ref is looking at that ankle, and he saw those knuckles kind of go like he grabbed him, and it probably affected his shot a little bit. But at the same time, here's the difference, though. It's a tie game. So are you going to make that call with 1 second left, or let him go into overtime and see who comes out better? If you ask most refs and most fans, they would have said, let that go and let them decide in overtime. That's what I would have thought and wanted, because sure, was it a foul, quote unquote? Yeah, probably have to let it alone. But was it a foul for that whole game? No, it wasn't. I watched that game. Bodies were flying, people were getting hit. It was a physical game. So players and coaches adapt. So if the referees call it tight at the beginning, then you get in a huddle, you say, listen, they're calling everything, got to be careful and expect to maybe get some calls and expect to get calls against you. If they're letting it play, then you say, hey, they're letting it play. You need to be physical along with them, or we're going to get run out of this place. So they adapt to the refs, and the refs, I thought they let them play for all but 1 second at the end of the game, and I don't believe that's the way to decide a game. That's my opinion.
Would an NBA ref have made that call?
No, I don't believe so. Well, I guess it depends. If it was Michael Jordan, maybe. I know they wouldn't have gave me that free throws. I know that. And I mean, you ask a lot of referees, and you're going to decide how you're going to ref the game, and you do it all the way through. And I'm sure there's other people. Hey, a foul's a foul in the first minute or last minute. Yeah, but it's the same foul. That frustrated me the most when I was a coach, when at one end there's some contact and they're going to the free throw line. At the other end, we're getting the same contact and we're not going to the free throw line. That's inconsistency. The worst thing about a referee, if they're inconsistent, because if they're consistent, we can adapt as coaches and players. We adapt. So that was a tough way to end that game. And if I'm a ref, I'm like, hey, I could blow my whistle right now, but it's a tie game. Let's see what they do in overtime.
Hey, do you think as these athletes have gotten bigger, stronger, and faster, the game has become harder to officiate?
Absolutely, it's faster. They jump higher, maybe. Most of them. And it's when I coached, especially at the G League level and NBA, and I had a play at the end of a game, and I had the ball. I encourage my players to shoot a jump shot, because for the most part, you go to the basket and you're going to get fouled, and they're not going to call it. So I'd rather have you pull up and try and take a shot that you got a shot at making it, because if you go in there at the end of a game, 99% of the time, you're not going to get a call from the ref, because they want the players to decide the game, and rightfully so. So I encourage my players, or I drew up plays for jump shots rather than going to the basket. Some people might say I'm crazy, but for the most part, you go to the basket and you do, fall down and everything, and they're just going to look at you and say, sorry, not at the end of the game.
Wow. I mean, it was heartbreaking loss. But I mean, I'm just so torn. But and as coaches say, as a former coach, that's the play everybody remembers. But it's 100.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I mean, it shines bigger, but really, I mean, so if Creighton had made a couple more free throws or made a three that was wide open, then you win the game, right? So even though it was in the first half, so all the plays accumulate. It's just those at the end are really gut wrenching. Because you can make up for missed shots or missed calls or whatever early in the game or early in the first half or early in the second half. But as the game gets closer and tighter, you can't make up for those mistakes anymore, and it becomes heartbreaking. And you look at that's what everybody loves about March Madness, and it's heartbreaking. Everybody thinks one shining moment, but there's only one team has one shining moment. Everybody else has heartbreak.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at the tears on the bench. Look at and I'll go back to that. And I'm a Kansas guy, so I'm not a Kansas State guy at all. But I'm telling you, I watched footage of the K-State coach go into their locker room and tell them how well they played and trusted each other, and that was just a class thing to do. Really class.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I saw that. I saw that. I just, I felt so bad for the Creighton team. I wanted to see that game settled on the court. And well, actually, it was settled on the court. The guy made a call. And the guy missed the first free throw, made the second one. So that was that. And I don't want to move on, man, before we talk about Miami and their run to the Final Four, knocking off what I thought was a pretty good, and they are. It's a good Texas team they beat yesterday. And they were down 13 points in the second half and took charge of that game to advance.
Yeah, I mean, and I told people earlier that Texas team beat a really, really good Kansas team 2 times back to back in the last 10 days of the season this year by 20 or more points. And I defy you to find any other team that was in the tournament that could do that. So,
Yeah.
It didn't surprise me. I thought they were going to make it. I had them going to the Final Four. They were on a roll at the end of the season, and they have all the tools. But Miami, they never gave up. They were down by like 13, like you said, and they kept battling. And Coach Larinaga, man, that old guy, old-time coach. I just love to see him get to the Final Four. I don't like watching him dance in the locker room as much, but more power to him.
And Mo, Miami did this without shooting without making any threes in the second half. That was an old school comeback. Because back in the day, a 13-point lead was a nice sized lead. Definitely wasn't insurmountable. But really in today's game, 14, 15-point leads aren't very much now. Is that because of the three-pointer or because of the fast pace and the shot clock?
Well, I think the faster pace, but I think definitely the three-pointer is why. I coach internationally in the World Games. I coach in the Olympics in London, and it really surprised me how unsafe a 10 or 15-point lead is, even in the shorter quarters that they have, 10-minute quarters, because of that three-point line. And shoot, you get a couple stops and a couple threes, and you erase that lead so fast. You don't know what hit you. So, Miami was 2 for 8 from the three. At least that's what I have against Texas, right? So, So they made 2 threes. But here's another stat. Here's an interesting stat. Let's look this up. Texas was 11 for 15 from the free throw line, and Miami was 28 for 32. They shot twice as many free throws as Texas. So there's interesting. And that goes to Texas shot 25 threes. So you don't get fouled usually shooting threes. And Miami shot 8 threes. So they were going to the basket more and getting to the free throw line.
And Texas is scoring without the clock moving in the second half as they're making their comeback.
Well, Miami's scoring without the clock moving.
I mean, yeah, Miami's scoring without the clock.
Yeah, yeah. So that's how you if you're down by 13, you get to the free throw line, you stop the clock, you get 2 points with the clock not moving. So that's like, you know.
And something I've always wanted to know, what is it about when a team's behind and they get that lead to 9, when they get that lead to single digits, it's like the other team kind of tightens up or something.
It's momentum and it's
And it's real too, isn't it?
yeah, it's pressure. So, you know, the NBA teams are up by 25, 28 points in the second half and lose the game, an NBA team. Because once the momentum shifts and you're going, damn, we just had a 25-point lead and now it's 10. What happened? And you start, thinking about that stuff. Momentum is real in basketball for sure. And, just like, one guy starts missing free throws, it seems like the rest of the team starts missing free throws. Same kind of thing. It seems like it's contagious. And, and the other thing is, if you do have a big lead, say 15 points, and then the other team makes a run and they get it down to 3 or 4 or 2, and then they don't take the lead, and then it goes back to 7 or 8, you're going to win that game because they try to climb that hill. They didn't get to the top, and now they're fading back.
And
So it's a very interesting dynamic that happens in basketball games at every level.
Yeah. So your thoughts about this weekend? You got San Diego, Florida Atlantic, UConn, Miami.
I mean, I know it sounds whatever. San Diego State plays in a mid-level conference. They played here in Las Vegas. Their tournament is here. I have friends that went to see it. They say it's one of the best defensive teams they've seen at the college level for a long time, but they can't score. That's what they said, but evidently they can score. And if they can score, and they have seniors and juniors that have been there before, with good size. I have them beating Florida Atlantic, and for that run to be over. Good defense and you can score and you've been there before. I like that. And you won the league championship. And then I just think UConn, their makeup and where they've been before, I think they're on a mission, and I think they're playing the best basketball of any of the teams right now. I have them beating Miami, but that should be a good game. And then, I see UConn winning it all this year because they're playing good here's a team that really struggled in the middle of the season. They had talent, they had a team meeting and stuff, and decided to turn this thing around, and they have. And, the games I've seen them all on TV. They're playing the best basketball everybody at this point right now on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, yeah. All right, man. Well, we'll see. It has been fun for sure. Do you think? No, go ahead, Mo.
Someone who has never won the championship or hasn't won it in many, many years is going to win it. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, did you think, like seeing a Florida Atlantic, seeing a 9 seed, an 8 seed, San Diego State's a 5 seed. Is this just a anomaly, or is this something we could see more of?
So you got.
You wouldn't be surprised if this happened again.
Not at all. You have a 4 seed, 2 5 seeds, and a 9 seed that you've never seen before. I don't think there's ever been a Final Four without one number 1 in it. And usually there's 2 to 3 number 1s in it every year. However, the collegiate basketball makeup has changed. And the thing that's changed it's called the transfer portal. And all these teams have transfer guys, and there's going to be more and more. And even more players from higher levels are going to go to Florida Atlantic saying, hey, I'm sitting on the bench of this Pac-12 team. I could go be a starter at Florida Atlantic type school and be a big part of changing that around. And I can make it to the Final Four also and have my one shiny moment.
Yeah, think about this. I may have sent you a text a couple of weeks ago when it happened. When Farley Dickinson upset Purdue, there was an economist said that win was worth $10 million in free advertising for Farley Dickinson. So how much money is Florida Atlantic going to make in free advertising?
Well, I know if you look at the stats, and they've known it for a long time, when football teams in college win high level bowl games, or college basketball teams go to the Final Four, Elite Eight, or whatever, their enrollment goes up by a big percentage. So that actually means something. That's part of the wheel. That's part of what turns the wheel in college sports, and they know that. And the thing that's going to even out, in my opinion, the transfer portal is NIL. Getting paid for your likeness in college. I know one of the Kansas guys who made a mere 200,000 this year in NIL is going to make $1 million next year. So the teams that can pay that NIL are going to get the best talent. You know what they're going to end up with, though? The best young talent. And then the older talent's going to go to San Diego State and Florida Atlantic and those schools, and then they're going to be back in the Final Four. So it's going to be
and knock them off again. Hey, but that reminds me. You talk about the financial part of it. Years ago, when Steve Spurrier was the coach at Florida, he was getting a raise. I think I don't know what he was making back then, $4 or $5 million a year, which is nothing nowadays. But back then, that was. And one of the professors at Florida said he spoke out against it. He said they're paying Steve Spurrier $5 million a year to coach the football. That's just a football game. Steve Spurrier said, when that professor gets 80,000 people to come to his class,
or enroll in the school,
maybe he could get $5 million too.
Yeah, there's a reason why college coaches have bonuses and clauses in their contracts. There's a reason why college football coaches, if they make a big bowl game, get another 150,000. There's a reason why I think the Florida Atlantic coach, by winning his league, he got 30 grand. By getting to the tournament, he got 50 grand. By getting to the Sweet 16, he got another 75 grand. By getting to the Final Four, he makes another 100,000. There's a reason that's put in there. The people that put in there are the schools, and there's a reason for that. Because it's known that when you make a run, people learn about you. I mean, 100 years ago, when I was being recruited by every college in the country, everybody thought I was going to UCLA because I was from California. I had seen Kansas play in the Final Four the year before, and I liked their blue uniforms, and I liked their funky Jayhawk. I wouldn't have noticed that if they weren't in the Final Four. They probably wouldn't have been on my map.
Yeah.
And that jersey's right there on my wall.
Big 44, Big Mo. Yeah, that I definitely get that, Paul. Well, we'll see what happens there. It's certainly been a lot of fun watching.
Yeah. And you know what? This is what's great about it too, Rick, is I think UConn's going to win, but you know what? I wouldn't surprise if any team, including Florida Atlantic, won. That won't surprise me.
Yeah.
That's what makes it interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they are playing with house money now.
Yeah,
they could go out there.
What they got? They have nothing to lose. There's no pressure on them. They have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
The thing that you got to be careful of is, though, if you go to Final Four and you're just happy to be there. There's the other thing you have to be careful of. We're here, great job, but our job is not done yet. And that's the thing that, you got nothing to lose, but if you're just happy to be there, probably not going to win either. So,
hey, you were talking about contracts, and I want to save a few minutes at the end of the show. I want to ask you about the business side of professional sports. So let's jump over and see what's happening in the NBA, and then I want to close the show. I got a couple of questions for you. I wanted to get your thoughts on a few issues we're seeing in the National Football League. But man, the association, Mo, we are headed down the home stretch,
Yep.
and the West is it's only getting wilder and wilder uh, as we head home. Um, Currently, Denver has that 3-game lead over Memphis. Memphis has been hot lately. I really thought with all that drama they had that they would fall apart, but they've won 6 straight and 9 of 10, and they're 3 games behind uh, uh, Denver for the number 1 seed and 2 ahead of Sacramento. And Phoenix is holding strong in the 4th spot, but they're only a half a game ahead of the Clippers for
And
the
one,
5th,
yeah. I mean,
and 2.5 games of the Lakers, who are all the way down in the 9th spot.
yeah,
This is absolutely crazy.
yeah. This is the craziest I've seen it. I mean, and you know who it drives crazy? I was an advanced scout for years in Dallas, and you know, you when you're an advanced scout, you scout ahead. So, you know, if I'm and I was with Dallas, like if I'm the Denver advanced scout, I need to put together a book right now on the team we're going to play in the first round. I got no chance. Not only could it be one of 2 teams, it could be one of 6 teams. So you
Right,
got a real problem. There
right.
was one year in Dallas where it came down to who we were going to play. It came down to the last game of the season, which was actually in Portland. So I had to stay up till 1 at night to watch who won that game to make sure I had. And I kind of gambled on making my bet with it. I had one report totally done and one was pretty good done. But you know, you're looking at the West. You're looking at. I think the top 3 spots are set. There's only 8 games left. I think Denver stays number 1. I think Memphis stays number 2. They're 2 games ahead of Sacramento, and I think Sacramento stays number 3. And
Yeah,
then after that, then you got the next run, which is the Phoenix. It's 11 games back. Clippers 11 and a half, and Golden State 12, and Minnesota 12.5, and New Orleans 13, and Lakers 13 and a half. OKC 13 and a half. So that's all jumbled up, and they're all fighting to be a top 6 because you don't want to be in the play-in game where you won't lose 1 game and you're out. So you know, Golden State is fighting. I didn't look, but I'll tell you if Golden State holds the number 6 spot to see how many freaking home games they have because they can't win on the road. So you might as well count those as losses. But I think they have won 2 in a row on the road. But so it's going to be interesting. The Suns, I thought would make a run at this. They haven't since getting KD, and he's been hurt.
yeah,
So that hurts them. The Clippers, like I said last week, is my biggest surprise because if you look on paper in their roster, they have one of the most talented, deepest teams in both leagues, in both conferences, and they're just barely hanging on to the 5th spot. Golden State is a mystery. Minnesota got Townsend back, so you know they might be able to make a little run. Lakers, LeBron's playing. He didn't decide not to get a season-ending surgery. I don't know what that's all about. So he's playing, and the biggest disappointment, no surprise to me because I called it, that the Dallas Mavericks have dropped down to what are they, 11, 12? I don't even know what they are anymore.
they're currently 11, 36, 39. They've lost 4 straight. And actually, Mo, being your history with the Mavericks as a former scout, I want to start there and take a look at this team because I remember when they made the big trade for Kyrie Irving, a lot of people were saying, "Uh-oh, here come the Mavericks," and you were doing exactly what you're doing now, shaking your head. And these are 2 dynamic offensive players, no question about that. Why is that not translating into success for that team?
Because they're 2 of the most dynamic players in the NBA with the basketball. And there's only one basketball. So you're going to have one dynamic guy with the basketball and the other guy who neither one of them plays well off the ball is going to be off the ball. So that dynamic player becomes a regular player when they don't have the ball in their hands. and and plus egos are involved. Plus both players have been, the go-to guy at the end of the game, and actually, the Mavericks gave up some really good role players that left a hole in their roster. So, I just guys like Luka and Kyrie put Harden in there that have to dribble 20 times to get their shot off. I don't like that dynamic, and I don't think that ever wins championships. I mean, I know the Warriors win by passing, the Lakers won by all the teams that win championships don't have a ball dominant guy, let alone two on their team.
Well, but Kyrie did it when he played with LeBron in Cleveland.
That was young. What was that? 12 years ago. That was when he was young. That he had.
Now he was a lot younger. It wasn't that long ago, but I get your point.
It was. I think it was at least 7 years ago. His best years were when he was rookie of the year. I think in 2014, and then he won the championship with LeBron. But it was his second, third year in the league. He didn't have an identity in the league. And LeBron did. So that's why it worked. But he's a different He's a different guy now, and a different ego. And he's not going to be and he left. He broke up that team. He left because he wanted his own team, right? He didn't want to be Batman, Robin. He wanted to be Batman. So, no matter what players say in a trade situation like that, oh, I'll mold to the team. I'll do what they need. That's 90% of the time. That's not true. You're going to be who you are, and who you want to be, and who you always wanted to be. You want to be the guy. I want to take the shot. Well, the other guy's going to be standing in the corner waiting.
Yeah, and I'm watching some of these highlights from Charlotte. Neither one of these guys are great defenders either.
No, they're both terrible. They're both bad defenders. I mean, that's tough when you're relied on so heavily. The only thing I thought might make it work is because Luka was getting worn out all the time because he has the ball in his hands 90% of the time and has to make 90% of the teams. At least Kyrie can let him rest, but that's not in his ego area. And you can see the frustration. I mean, Jason Kidd is super frustrated with the whole team. Luka's been frustrated, and that happened. They were kind of rolling, right? They were like, I think, fourth in the West. They were third or fourth in the West.
Yeah.
And they were rolling. And Luka was MVP talk. And they were winning games, and everything was great. And then they pretty much sold the farm for a year because really Kyrie's being rented for a year, right? He's a free agent. Yeah. So you're renting him for half a year, a couple months. The only reason to do that is like Toronto did with Kawhi, is to win a championship.
To win the thing, yeah.
Then he left. So Dallas, gave away some good players and draft picks, I think, and they're not even in the playoff picture now. And that's a disastrous trade.
Yeah. Do you think Kidd is going to be on the hot seat for this?
Probably not rightfully. I mean, he didn't make the trade. The general manager, Mark Cuban, made the trade, and what I hear now is Luka was wanting the trade because he was getting frustrated. But you know who was going to get fired? Jason Kidd, for sure. And then because Luka and I don't think Kyrie's going to be there again. He's going to go to the Lakers or somewhere else. And, then you're going to be left with Luka and some other new coach and see what happens. And they're going to be in the same boat next year.
I go back to earlier in the season when McMillan told Trae Young, hey, you're not playing. I mean, I thought that was like, man, that's how you run a team.
And that was a team rule. It wasn't his rule. It was a team rule. Yeah. But that's how you get fired.
And he was gone a month later.
Yeah. All the time. I can tell you, you're paying a player $40 million and you're paying a coach $5 million. Guess who goes?
That's backwards, Mo. I don't care. That's
That's the way the game is now. Look, that's the way the NBA is. Football is a little different, I think, for some reason in baseball, but that's the way the NBA is now. NBA players move. It's like their own transfer portal. They demand to be traded. How many players have demanded to be traded over the last few years and have been traded?
yeah.
You know, back in the day, the owners would have said, "Oh, great for you, but we're not trading you. So you're going to play
Right.
for us, and you're going to play your heart out, or you're not. Or we're going to suspend you. You're not going to get paid. Pick one." They don't do. That's not the way of the NBA anymore. I mean, you
Right.
know, I demand to be traded. I'll never play here again. Okay, here. Where do you want to go? I mean, at the very least, back in the day, well, you want to be traded? Okay, we're going to trade you somewhere crappy.
Right.
Good luck.
Right. It's different. Okay, let's go over. Well, yeah, I agree with you with those top three. Is it just with just 8 games left or so? It's really just anybody's. I mean, you
Yeah,
almost pull a team from a hat.
yeah, and the playoffs are going to be the same. There, there's nobody. I mean, right now, Lakers, New Orleans, Minnesota, Golden State, Clippers, Suns, Sacramento, Memphis, Denver, and nobody in that group is scared of any other team. And
Yeah.
and and anybody beating any of those teams, a little harder in a 7 game series for sure, but it wouldn't surprise me. Probably not in the first round, unless you're Golden State playing Sacramento, right? That's the first round matchup right now. Golden State's playing Sacramento. You don't think Golden State could beat Sacramento in a 7 game series? Sure, they could. You know,
Yeah.
so but after the first round, there is no favorite in the West. You know.
That is absolutely correct. But but it really doesn't matter because nobody's going to beat whoever comes out of the East. The
Yeah,
powers in the
I don't
East
think
this
so.
year.
You know, and the only thing with Golden State is, you know, their road record is so terrible. You know, and if they don't have the home court in the first round, they're going to probably lose anyway. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't even. Denver probably has the best chance of any of them to beat the Bucks or Boston or outside Philly. And I don't know why Clippers have the roster to do it. The Suns, if they stay healthy, could do it, but that's the only other teams out of the West that I think can compete with Bucks, Boston, and Philly as the third slide in that group.
Let's look at at the at the bottom of the East. Chicago's played well lately. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They're clinging to that 10th spot. Uh, but it's nobody down there that can really do any damage, is there?
No, none of those teams matter. So, you know, the only, you know, Nets aren't going anywhere. Miami's not going anywhere. Maybe Atlanta, no. Toronto, no. Chicago, no. The best matchup in the first round is Cavs versus Knicks. That'll be interesting.
Yeah.
And then whoever Philly plays in the second round, it'll be right now it's Boston probably.
Did,
You
did you
know,
see Ben Simmons is not playing anymore this season?
well, really, what a surprise!
Not that he made a big difference when he played, Mo. I mean, man, what do
Yeah,
you?
I mean, you know, his career could be over, right? I mean,
He's 26 years old.
career could be over. I mean, he's talking about his back now, right? His back.
Uh, his knee and back
Yeah, so
has
his career could
has
be over. I mean,
no timetable for his return.
realistically, his career was probably over 2 years ago, right? I mean, 2 years ago, he didn't play any games hardly for Philly, and then he demanded a trade, you know, and now he hasn't played. You know, he's irrelevant now. I mean, he became like 3 or 4 years ago MVP possibility, big guard, passer, defender. To now, he's irrelevant. You know, I don't know what his contract status is. Probably getting paid a lot of money, but you know, I don't
Yep.
see him coming back from this at all. You know, and I can see him. being don't want to say any names, but there's been a lot of guys in the past that have been
Yeah,
there,
but
and then lasted for 3 or 4 years, and then they go in the sunset. That's it. That's the last year of them.
yeah, but 7 points a game for them. I mean, 7 points a game.
And what are they paying them? 30 million, something like that.
Wow.
I mean,
That's one of the most dramatic drop offs I've seen, Mo.
yeah, I mean, most of the busts that I've been talking about, they draft really high, and then they never become the players that they were thought to be. But you paid a lot of money for them, 30, 20 million, 30 million, 40 million, and then they just write off. But Simmons was a good player. And now, like you said, his drop off is ridiculous. And I mean, I don't
And
know.
that's why I'm caution. And I heard you talk about it with Winnebago. I can never say his name.
When Biana, whatever his name.
Yeah, I mean, he might be a great player,
Yep.
or maybe not. We just don't know.
Whatever happened to Chad Holgram? Where is he?
Yeah. Hopefully he's getting better
I
and be
saw, I saw
ready.
there was footage of him warming up before a game shooting threes.
Yeah,
Okay. But I mean, remember, he was the best thing since sliced bread,
yeah.
right? 7'3" guy, 2 guy, handle the ball around. That's what this other kid is. I think he's better. I've seen him play in person. So we'll see, but you never know, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Hey man, this hour has just jetted by. But more, I want to ask you a quick question. You know, regarding the NFL, Lamar Jackson is the Baltimore Ravens put Lamar on a franchise tag, exclusive franchise tag, uh, 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 which means he can negotiate with other teams and try to work a deal out. And the Ravens will have an opportunity to match it. Today, he said he wanted to trade uh, that franchise tag. He'll make $32 million next year if he plays under it, which is a whole lot of money.
Is it
But
guaranteed?
yeah, he will get 32 million guaranteed next
Oh,
year.
wow.
But he wants Deshaun Watson money, and nobody's going to do that. And one of the things is one of the big controversies is that he's his own agent. And just your thoughts on not only Jackson, but the what having an agent and negotiating contracts in professional sports, be it the NFL or NBA, that whole thing, how that goes.
It's really changed over the years. When I was there and even, up to 10, 15 years ago, probably, you needed an agent to, to talk to teams and, get them to draft you or, get a better contract, and get enough money. But those times are changed. I know the NBA has slots, and I think the NFL has slots also. So if you're drafted in the first round of the NBA, you don't need an agent. Your money, your contract is what slot you get drafted. So if you're looking at the first draft in the NBA, first pick, you're looking at a guy that's going to make 22 million guaranteed, 50 million over a 4-year contract. That's your contract. No negotiation. And you go down to, 44 million, 40 million, 32 million. The last player in the NBA draft is going to get guaranteed 5 million and an $11 million 4-year contract with a 5th-year option of the team. So all those contracts, if you get drafted, say if you get drafted 5th, you're going to get $13 million guaranteed and 30 million over 4 years. So you're going to make, what's that, 8 million a year, whatever that is, 9 million. That's what you get. So nothing your agent can do will change that. Same in football. I'm looking at football. You're drafted first, you're getting 36 million. Second is 35. Third is 34. All the way down to the last pick is 11. And they do signing bonuses. I mean, you get 36 million. 22 million is a signing bonus. You get that check at one check. How about that check? Give me that. But what agents are good for are a couple things. Number one, they're good at getting off-field or court deals with companies, with Adidas, with Nike, with Pepsi, with whoever. Those are your guys that get those contracts, right? They get those deals.
Mhm.
The other thing is really important. It's not about money. It's about relationships. So if I'm a player and the agent here would be able to talk to the team and try to get what he can and kind of talk crap about the team. You're kind of saying, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that, kind of shit to the team. Player doesn't need to hear that. The worst is the team is going to talk to that agent a little bit shit about the player. Well, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that, he's this, he's that. He's not everything we want. You don't want a player that's going to play for you to hear that. So the agent is a buffer, between that. And what happens in this situation, if he doesn't have an agent, he's talking to the team. And what they're telling him now is, you're not worth that much. We'll pay you this. You're not worth that much. And other teams aren't going to pay you that much. So, and you want him to be your starting quarterback. That's not what you want him to hear. So do you need an agent financially? Not for your playing contract, but for your marketing and all that, yes. But more than that, as a buffer between you and the team. And that's what I think is important. And I think that's what's missing here, because we all know players are sensitive now. So if the general manager, owner of his team says, yeah, but you don't do this and you don't do that, he's going to take it a different way than his agent would.
Yeah, and they're concerned about his injuries over the last 2 seasons and his style of play, where he's running around out there. So he's going to take some hits.
Yeah, but you need, like, the agent would be a buffer. When they say that to the agent, then he can go tell the player, hey, they're a little concerned with this, but it's not a big deal. Whatever. He could be a buffer for that. Whereas if you tell that right to the player, I don't get hurt that much. I'm a tough son of a bitch. I'm not getting hurt this year. I'm going to change what, it's that buffer that agents do. So, financially, he probably doesn't need an agent. He's a commodity. He knows what he's worth, all that. But as a buffer to negotiation, yeah, he could use an agent as a buffer. And he is under contract for next year,
right? Well, they have his rights. I mean, he needs to sign the franchise. He either signs the franchise tag or he doesn't play.
So
unless he can work out a trade. So he's got 1 year left, but he has to sign the franchise. Now he could sit the year out and lose $32 million. I would think he wouldn't want to do that, because man, $32 million, you're still winning, brother.
Yeah, so that 32 million is not guaranteed then.
Yes, if he signs the 32
million.
Yeah, but
right now it's not guaranteed.
No.
Yeah, see, that's why they get the signing bonus. Because at this point, you're not guaranteed anything. So you're going to play for us next year, 32 million. You get hurt after 2 months, you're done. See ya.
Yeah.
So, and that's where that's where the franchise contract comes in. And I mean, I don't know the guy's business. I don't know, if he's smart.
Yeah, I know that. I know that. And some of this is on the NFL Players Association. They've had problems dealing with the owners in terms where NBA players' money is guaranteed. NFL owners have been hesitant to give out guaranteed contracts.
Yes.
And I understand the owners when you think about the injury portion of it.
I mean, like, you're a first-round draft pick. Your first 2 years are guaranteed, and then it's a team option for the next 2. So it's not all guaranteed. That's why players that get drafted, that's why I can't argue with players that are coming out after their freshman or sophomore year, because then they get their first contract under them out of the way. That's what you want to do. That's how you make your money, and then get to your next contract where it all becomes guaranteed. That's how you do that.
Oh, so NBA's play only the first 2 years are guaranteed.
First 2 or 3, and then the 4th year is a team option.
There's an option.
So if you're bad, you don't get that year. It's sorry. Yeah. It's not, it's not guaranteed. So like I said, like the first pick in the draft is guaranteed 22 mil, 50 million over 4 years. So that's 13 million a year, and then it goes down from there. Where if you're the 10th pick, only 9 million of your 21 million is actually guaranteed. So that's how that works.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I should be an agent.
well, you probably could. There's no doubt about that with all your experience. That's for sure.
Or I should
Uh,
run a team. That's the other thing.
it's just it's interesting to see Mo, all this stuff play out, and you know they have to do something. I think Lamar would be crazy to pass up that $32 million.
Yeah. I don't know how you could not. Okay, here's 32 million. No, thanks. No, I'm gonna pass on that. I'm gonna take my chances. Ooh, boy. I know your wife and my wife would not be having that.
Oh, absolutely, dude. You're going to work.
Just go sign that right now. What are you doing?
Well, we're gonna get out of here, Paul. I enjoy the show every week. Always informative, always a lot of fun, always interesting. Appreciate your takes on some of these issues. And hey, we got the Final Four next Monday, so we'll talk about our schedule for next week. But we will be back on for sure. Maybe we'll do it before the game, maybe the next night. But we'll put something up on our page and make sure to go to believe.com to check us out there, BLEAV.com. But until next time, for Big Mo, Paul Mokeski, I'm Rickey Hampton. Peace, everybody.
Peace.